Welcome to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where we feature top leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry with your host, Drew Hendricks. Now, let's get started with the show.
Drew Hendricks here. I'm the host of Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where I talk with leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry. Today, I have Jeremy Weiss here of Rise 25, who's done thousands of interviews with successful business leaders. And today, we've flipped the script, and he will be interviewing me.
Drew, thanks for having me. I am excited about this episode because it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And if any company knows is near and dear to their heart, which is about automation. So we're going to get into that in a second. But before we do, I just want to say this episode is brought to you by Barrels Ahead. Barrels Ahead is a wine and craft marketing agency that helps propel revenue growth. And they use that by using a powerful combination of content development, SEO, and paid search. And Drew, what I like to say is basically Barrels Ahead, your specialty is helping companies get in front of their ideal customers. And when we were chatting, I didn't know this about you, Drew, and your team. You've been helping companies in the wine industry since 1993. Okay. You were building websites for the industry and people didn't even know what the internet was. At that time, I didn't know what the internet was. And you've even built a wine subscription club back in 96, which was one of the first wine subscriptions outside of the traditional winery. And so if anyone listening, if you're a winery, a wine company, a supplier, or in the beverage space, give them a call. If you're interested in attracting more customers, you can email them. They're very friendly. hello@barrelsahead.com, or you can go to barrelsahead.com to learn more and check out episodes of the podcast. So, Drew, you got the Wine Business Monthly, and something jumped out at you. We're going to talk about that, but I also want to point out an organization that you love, and you go to their conference. What was that?
Oh, yeah, we were talking before about the Free the Grapes conference. It's always one of my favorites. Every year it's up in Alameda. This year it was virtual. They still did a stunning job. But the one thing I love about that conference is it's actually a nonprofit fundraiser. And their sole mission is to really do what they say, free the grapes, ensure that everyone around the country has direct access to wineries and the wines that they love. And there's still about 4 states that really need your help in writing to the legislators to help them gain access. I mean, New Jersey, Kentucky, Alabama, Rhode Island, Tennessee, Ohio, Delaware, and Indiana. Residents of those states don't have the same access to wines that we do in California, Oregon, or Washington. So it's a great cause. Love the winery. I mean, love that conference, and really just helps wineries across the United States. It gives them skills on how they can better market to consumers and better attract the right consumers.
I love the name, Free the Grapes. And in the best relationships and conversations are when we're all drinking wine together, right? And there were some people you were mentioning. I think their name is Lori and Zach. Yeah, what do they do?
And that's where I met Lori for the first time. Lori from Outshinery. Her company does bottle shots, which is one of the most important things that really, if you're selling your wine online, you need a good picture. Don't just use stock pictures. Hire Outshinery, go into their program and get great bottle shots. The other one was Zach Campus from Commerce 7. And Zach and what they're doing over at Commerce 7, they're really revolutionizing the online sales of wine. And what they've done is they've actually detached their e-commerce system from the website. So you're not burdened. So you have a lot more freedom to show your in the way that you want, and then still have a solid e-commerce system to back it up.
Interesting.
And they've been doing a lot right now with helping wine clubs or helping wineries shift from the traditional club model to a subscription model where you have a little more freedom of choice. And that's Zach over at Commerce 7.
Yeah, I love these talk about tools and automation because we're always looking at ways to improve our businesses, make it easier. And talk about Wine Business Monthly. What stuck out to you?
So I just picked up the hard copy and was flipping through it yesterday, reading it. And one of the shocking things that I saw was that what was that? I'm actually looking right now in here. In 2021, 66% of the wineries out there say that they're not going to spend any money on automation this year, which to me was shocking because as sales are down and as capital expenditures across the board are down, that's the one capital expenditure that I would think wineries would be investing in, because this automation allows them to do more of what they have. So by investing a little bit in their automating the workflow, getting a better idea of what's happening when, you can reduce the amount of staff necessary, and you can fully utilize all the equipment that you have.
Yeah, that makes sense because you do more with less, right?
Mm-hmm.
With automation.
Absolutely.
What are
kind
some
of shocking to read that statistic.
What's a company out there that people should look at as far as automation goes?
Well, the one I'm really excited about is Innovent. And what they just came out with a new some new technology that allows them to do some vineyard monitoring without the use of, which is a game changer. I mean, a lot of these vineyards, you're nowhere near cell reception or Wi-Fi, and to be able to monitor the the temperatures and the whole vineyard
experience.
Vineyard stats, it frees up a lot of manpower or personnel power to have to go out there and manually get these statistics and see where everything's going.
There's, I guess that gets to the next question. There's automation, and then the next question is, about messaging. With the survey that you saw, I think a lot of these automation tools are going to have to do a better, maybe, I don't know if it's an uphill battle, but it's going to be somewhat of a, uphill battle of getting in front of these companies and getting the wineries to see that it's not just an expense, it's actually going to save them a ton of money, right? So can you talk about, because you're an expert, you've seen these wine industries for decades. What's some messaging that you see, or what are some things that Innovent is doing right, and some examples of messaging that they can get in front of some of the wineries? Like, what sticks out to you with Innovent as their main core messaging of what they do?
They're doing a great job really explaining how their software makes it easy. They've got some great customer stories, and they're one of the few that have come out with these customer stories where people actually, you have winemakers giving them testimonials on talk about how it's been a game changer for them. And they're doing that a fantastic job, but not all the companies are doing such a great job with relating the ease and the customer stories back to their brand. They're a little too laden with kind of features and tech, and not really translating that to the end result, which is saving the winery money, making the job easier. And really, like at Barrels Ahead, that's where we come in a lot of times with a lot of these supply tech companies, where you've got the best and the brightest scientists coming up with just game-changing new tech. But the challenge is relating it to the winery owner who may not have a technical background, or the enologist at the winery, and show them how this tech is actually going to improve upon what they already know. Because when you have two of the best and the brightest talking to each other, oftentimes there's a disconnect, and we help make that connection. And that's what I think Innovent's done a great job of, looking through their site, that some of the other automation companies may not be doing right now.
Talk a little bit more about that, Drew, which is, I'd love to hear kind of your process a little bit. So let's say a barrel maker or a label maker, or one of these companies that wants to get in front of a customer. I mentioned three things. I mentioned content, SEO, and paid search. How do you incorporate those into getting people in front of their customer?
Well, in the wine industry, in the wine business, it's a little different than the way we would do something out in another industry. Because a lot of the people find these new companies through directories, through wine finds analytics, through the wine directory. And the key here is that you've got your explanation on the wine directory, and you're going to the site. But if you don't have the proper tracking, a lot of times people will go straight from the directory onto the website, and then they may or may not ever become a customer. And one of our challenges is, or one of the services that we do, is we help re-engage those people from the different sources where they come, whether they come from search. Oftentimes they're not Googling winery automation software on Google, or they're not using Bing. They're using Wine Vine Analytics in the producer directory, or they're using one of the other ones. So the idea there is that once they get to the site, you're able to then retarget them through a much less expensive paid advertisement than a blind Google search ad. So we help them basically maximize their budget and make sure that the messaging on the site is easily consumable. Even if you're a brilliant PhD, you still need to have easily consumable online content. You spend all day diving into numbers and statistics. It doesn't mean that you don't need a few key sound bites on the website when you visit it for the first time. And it's those sound bites or those key pieces of knowledge that allow people to go down the we use the term funnel in marketing, but down through that funnel, from like barely knowing that this winery automation company exists or this boxing company exists, to the point where they're actually now understanding the value that company presents, to the point where eventually a sales team's engaged in helping nurture that relationship through the sales cycle, which is a lot of times is a very long-term sales cycle. When you look at capital expenditures in a winery or a craft beverage company, they're not buying new equipment every year. But when they do come to buy that, when time does come for them to buy that new tank or that new fermenter or that new crusher, we want to make sure that our clients are at their top of mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally true, because, what ways can you shortcut the process without, and that's why the internet's amazing, because they can get a lot of this. They can get to know you, like you, and trust you, all if you have the right content out there. I would love for you to take me back, Drew, to 1993 and that website. What was the internet like then? What was the website that you created?
I remember getting our first domain name. It was the wine store. It was a wine store. It was at the time, I believe it was called Mr. Liquor. It was at Taravel Street in San Francisco, and we had just changed the name to San Francisco Wine Trading Company. That was my first branding. Came up with a logo. Still using the logo today, and we got sfwtc.com. That website's long gone, but at the time it was a there was a name grab. At the time, I probably would have bought a whole bunch more domains. But were they expensive
at the time? They were probably $100 to today's 10, right?
I never remember them being all that expensive.
They weren't, okay.
But at the time, it was a hard-coded site, straight in HTML, and we were able to use some. And at the time, this was all self-trained. My background's in philosophy and Attic Greek, but I guess the learning a dead language like Attic Greek is.
It's like programming, right?
It was almost like programming without the programming before there was programming.
Right.
So it wasn't too hard to pick up HTML, and I actually found some some open source CGI scripts way before open source was a thing, and we shortly after, I would say in '95, we had a CGI script out there that was doing in-store wine auctions to help some of the customers be able to resell their wines. And that was right when eBay started opening it up. And eBay did flirt with wine sales or wine auction sales for a few years. But at the time, it was fun back at the time. But that was basically the site, very bare bones, just a business card with some wines online. But mostly it was a way for people to see our current stock and give us a phone call. And it was all very phone-based back then. Still is.
Yeah. Thank you, Drew. I really appreciate it. I have one last question. Before I do, thanks for sharing some of the automation and you kind of your finger on the pulse of what's important, what's next with this industry, and also how people can do more with less. So I appreciate your thoughts on all this. And before I ask the last question, which is going to be probably one of your favorite topics, which is your favorite wines and what you have in stock. But I want to just point people towards more episodes of the podcast. People can check out barrelsahead.com. So Drew, tell me, what are your favorites and what do you like to have in stock?
I guess my cellar is, anybody that comes over to our house knows that I'm a huge fan of Tablas Creek. That is one of my go-to daily reds and whites. And man, their whites age so well. Tablas Creek for the Rhone style blend. Huge fan of McPrice Myers. They're just down the road from them. A little more richer, dark, inky style. So I got a little best of both worlds. But you know what? You always have to have the Oregon Pinots. Love Beaufreres. Beaufrere Pinot is just awesome. Super delicate. I mean, it drinks just like a red Burgundy. And I'm not drinking as many red Burgundies as I want these days. And so Beaufreres is filling the niche.
Drew, thank you. It's like talking dirty to me when you describe these wines. I love it. It's like inky, like the way you describe it is awesome. Check out more episodes of the podcast. Check out Barrels Ahead. Thanks, Drew, for having me.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.